wanted to talk to you about something. It's a big issue on Spike, big issue I've talked about, and often with you, indeed, on your podcast many times, about the incredible censorship that we've seen online over the years. Now, I think a lot of us are very delighted with Elon Musk, a flawed character, I think we'll agree, in recent weeks, but taking over X and actually ending, people being basically thrown off Twitter simply for saying things like, men can't become women, women can't become men, and basic facts like that. But we've seen horrendous amount of people thrown off Facebook and Instagram and censored by Meta's Mark Zuckerberg in the line of fact-checking. And they've had a whole team of people who've been fact-checking all these years, highly politicised, censorious fact-checking from their very woke agenda and Democrat agenda as well. Suddenly, what a surprise, we're about to have Donald Trump back in office. Turns out he doesn't think these fact-checkers are any use anymore and they've been too political. Are you surprised by this turn of events?
I wouldn't say I'm surprised. It's actually not Mark Zuckerberg's first mea culpa. He admitted when he was on Joe Rogan's podcast a few years ago that the FBI had essentially pre-warned him about the Hunter Biden laptop scandal that was about to emerge, which they then censored as disinformation, even though it was true. He also wrote a letter last year to various congressmen saying that, essentially blaming the Biden administration for a lot of the censorship during COVID. I mean, I think that's a bit weak. As Elon Musk has shown, you can simply rip off the censorship. You can defy the US
and
government,
Elon Musk exposed that when he bought Twitter and turned it to X. He did actually expose all of the extraordinary emails that had gone on in between staff there and the White House, basically demanding censorship, which Twitter basically went, okay, T.
Exactly, and they could have stood up for themselves, and Mark Zuckerberg could have stood up for himself and his platform back then if he really believed in free speech. I think he sees that the tide is turning on this issue, certainly. There are also some other moves behind the scenes. So, for instance, he's appointed Dana White, the head of UFC fighting, to the Facebook board,
and a big
and
Trump ally.
an ally of Trump. So there is, there is a bit of grovelling to the new administration going on, but overall, this is really, really good news.
Yeah. But it shouldn't, it shouldn't be happening because of who the president is. I mean, again, I would just expect there to be censorship in the opposite direction. What we want is these companies not to decide when they effectively are the marketplace of our, of our free speech, to decide what we can and can't say. I mean, look, we were massively censored during COVID period by, likes of Google on YouTube. They took our page down here at Talk for apparently three offences. 3 strikes and you're out. And it's only because of the might of this organisation behind us that we were able to get it back up again. We were accused of COVID disinformation when what we said, we'd interviews with top medics and scientists putting stuff which has been now proven to be true. And that was the thing. This is the fact-checking that's the problem. Who's fact-checking the fact-checkers, this issue? Because it's not just, it was Twitter was doing it. Now X has got this idea, this community notes, which I don't think everyone's allowed to do. I think people who've paid for their blue ticks are allowed to do, but no one else. But it's actually proven when someone makes a ridiculous statement, you leave it up there, you don't ban it, you don't take that, but you have a note on it saying, this isn't true, and here's the proof of why it's not true, which I think is a much better way to debate. But we've still got the likes of BBC Verify. They're still going, and again, highly politicised. Whenever they've got in touch with me, I'm like, why don't you investigate this, this, and this? And, they're very, very political in their choice of things they investigate, and they're very political in their verdicts as well.
That's absolutely true. And if you want proof that this is entirely political, you can do what's called a Google Ngram search, and it shows you how often certain words are used. And if you search for mis and disinformation, you'll see that the two words explode after 2016, when Britons voted for Brexit and Americans voted for Trump. Suddenly, that was seen as the excuse, as the reason. People have been brainwashed by lies. That's why they're voting the wrong way. And as you said, you've seen it in many of the verdicts as well. I mean, you mentioned BBC Verify, Mariana Spring. I wonder who's going to check some of her facts. She's made some absolutely outlandish claims. Recently, she claimed that 1 in 4 Britons believes that COVID is a hoax, not thinks lockdown is bad or is skeptical of vaccines, literally thinks the whole thing is fake. She says that 1 in 7 Britons has attended an anti-COVID demonstration. That's millions of people. So
We've been at quite a lot of those. I'm pretty sure not. But look, they needed to fact check her CV, for goodness sake. The idea that anybody could be running that unit with A, on her little experience, and B, on her fake CV that she used to get her job originally, I just find untenable. No one else would actually be in that job in that place. But this is it. But there are so many organisations set up as sort of independent fact checkers, whether it's by Facebook or whether it's by the BBC or other ones. I mean, there was a guy who used to work here. He was a massive big. I mean, in social media, he was involved in in the climate, anti-climate demonstrations. I mean, the full-on, proper demos. And he works as a fact checker. I mean, I'm not sure these people are politically neutral when they fact. I'm quite happy to have people go, look, this is the fact on this, this is the fact on that. But we know when it comes to climate change, when it comes to COVID, when it comes to things like Brexit, when it comes to Donald Trump, there doesn't seem to be anybody who is neutral enough that you can trust what they have to say.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, there are some, one organisation which I think is quite good is Full Fact, and you can go on their website and you can see they're working out. I think that's the key thing. If you can see someone's working out, if you can see where they've put the two claims aside, side by side, and then you can understand the process they've come to reach the truth. But also, I mean, it's just this very idea that we can have these fact checkers there to pronounce the truth, like as if it's their sort of tablets handed down from God.
Well, remember the New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said, you don't listen to anything unless the government says it. You don't know it's true. Wow. I mean, George Orwell didn't go that far, for goodness sake. Fraser Myers, thank you very much.